says, have you ever loved someone so much that you started to lose yourself? You started watering his garden while yours was bone dry. You saw the red flags, but your heart, it kept trying to repaint them. Today, I came to talk to the woman who gave too much, stayed too long, and now doesn't even recognize herself in the mirror anymore. Baby girl, this one's for you. Love isn't supposed to hurt like hell, but somewhere along the way, we started confusing pain with passion. We started believing that if it doesn't come with struggle, if it doesn't come with chasing, if it doesn't come with tears and sleepless nights, then it must not be real. Let me break that lie for you right now. See, love, real love, isn't supposed to break you down just to build you back up. It isn't supposed to leave you questioning your worth every night before you close your eyes. Love is not supposed to make you feel small just so someone else can feel big. And yet so many of us are walking around with emotional bruises, calling them battle scars, proud that we held it down for someone who was never holding us in the first place. How many times have you ignored your own gut? That little voice whispering, this isn't love, baby, this is survival. You stayed in the name of loyalty. You stayed because you thought being a ride or die meant riding until the wheels fell off, even if that car was heading straight into a ditch. And what did you get for it? Apologies soaked in manipulation. I didn't mean it. You're just too sensitive. You're overthinking. No, sis, you're not overthinking. You're finally waking up. Some of y'all are loving people who are allergic to accountability. You're building homes and hearts that were never planning to stay. You're praying for a future with someone who doesn't even respect your present. That's not love, that's a performance. And you're the only one acting in a play that he already walked out of. Let me tell you something I learned the hard way. Real love does not require you to abandon yourself. Real love does not make you feel like you are too much, too loud, too needy, too broken. Real love says, I see you, I choose you, I cover you, and not just on your best day when your hair's done and your smile is wide. Real love shows up even when you're falling apart and says, you're still enough. Think about this. When a child falls and scrapes their knee, what's the first thing a loving parent does? They don't say, get up, you're being dramatic. They don't say, it's your fault for running too fast. No, they run to them, they kneel down, they clean the wound, they soothe the pain, they speak softly, they stay present. Now tell me, why do you accept less care from someone you're giving your whole heart to? We don't need more people who can kiss your lips. We need people who can cover your soul. Someone who says your heart is safe with me. And if you've never experienced that before, let me be the one to say that kind of love exists, but you will not find it while you're still tied to pain and calling it normal. Every day you choose someone who chooses themselves over and over again, you're teaching your heart that it's okay to settle. But sis, love that feels like walking on eggshells, that's not intimacy, that's fear. Love that makes you cry more than you laugh, that's not passion. That's punishment. You don't have to live your life auditioning for a role in someone else's story, but you don't have to keep proving your worth to someone who keeps forgetting your value. Real love doesn't need convincing. It sees you and says, I'm not going anywhere. Imagine this. You're making dinner for him after working all day, mentally drained, but still trying to be the one. He walks in, barely notices. You're thinking about his needs, his dreams, his problems, but who's checking on yours? You send that long text pouring out your soul only to get a K, and still you're trying to fix what you didn't break. That's not love, baby, that's bondage. And God didn't create you to suffer in the name of staying committed. Let me flip the script. Let me remind you, you are not hard to love. You are not too complicated. You are not asking for too much. You're asking the wrong person. You're giving $1 million loyalty to someone who wouldn't even give you spare change of respect. And you're doing it hoping that maybe one day they'll wake up and finally see the light. But sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away. Not to be bitter, not to be vengeful, but because you love yourself enough to stop bleeding for someone who won't even offer a Band-Aid. Sometimes healing begins when you finally say no more, because love, true, healthy, God-sent love, is not supposed to make you feel like you're drowning. It should feel like breath. like safety, like stillness, not war, not chaos, not confusion. And the moment you stop settling for love that hurts is the moment you start creating space for love that heals. You deserve to be loved in full, not in fragments, not just when it's convenient, not just when it benefits them. You are worthy of love that doesn't need pain to prove it's real. He saw your worth. He just didn't honor it. Let that sit for a second. Because the truth is, some of you are walking around thinking you were never good enough, never smart enough, never pretty enough, never enough. But the real story is this: he knew exactly what he had. He just didn't rise to the level of respect it required. You weren't too much, he was too little. See, when someone sees your light and refuses to protect it, that's not a reflection of your glow. It's a revelation of their blindness. He didn't miss your beauty, your loyalty, your soul deep love. He saw it, he just chose to handle it carelessly. And that's the problem. Some men don't want a woman they have to rise for. They want one they can control, one who will dim herself so they can shine, one who will stay quiet so their ego stays intact, one who will carry both her dreams and their insecurities. And when you refuse to shrink into a version that made him comfortable, that's when he started calling you too much. But let's be clear, you weren't too much. You were just more than he was ready to honor. Think about it like this. Imagine someone hands you a priceless diamond, but you treat it like a rock. You don't place it in a safe. You don't get it appraised. You don't even wipe it clean. You toss it in a drawer like it's just something else to keep. That doesn't mean the diamond isn't valuable. It just means you never understood what you were holding. That's what he did with you. He knew you'd ride for him. He knew you'd forgive him again and again. He knew you'd lower your boundaries and silence your needs just to keep the peace. He knew that, and instead of cherishing that, he used it, took advantage of your softness, drained your energy, watched you pour, and never thought once to fill you back up. You ever seen someone walk into a luxury store, look around, see the price tag, and walk right back out? That doesn't mean the item isn't worth it. It just means they couldn't afford it. And girl, you are that high value piece. He walked into your life, realized what it would take to love you right, and instead of leveling up, he blamed you for being expensive. But let's really talk. Let's talk about the way he kept you in cycles. 1 minute he was praising your strength, the next he was punishing you for it. 1 week he was calling you his queen, and the next he was entertaining peasants. He wanted access to your heart, your body, your prayers, your time, but he didn't want to carry the responsibility that comes with loving a woman like you, a woman who knows who she is, a woman who brings more than just her presence. She brings power. And that scared him, because the truth is some men are intimidated by a woman who knows her worth, even if she's still learning how to walk in it. He saw the glow up before it happened. He saw the vision in you before you fully believed it. And instead of clapping for it, he tried to contain it, because your elevation meant exposure. Your growth meant he'd have to either step up or be left behind. So what did he do? He played mind games, withheld love as punishment, gave just enough to keep you hoping but never enough to keep you whole. He turned inconsistency into a weapon, made you feel crazy for asking for the bare minimum, gaslit you into believing that you were lucky to have him when it was always the other way around. You became so used to proving your worth that you forgot it was never supposed to be a debate. Love is not a courtroom. You are not on trial. Your value doesn't need defending. Your soul doesn't need justifying. And maybe it hurts to admit that he saw your value but never honored it, because that would mean all the effort, the love, the second chances. You did it all for someone who never truly deserved a front row seat in your life. But baby, that pain is where the truth lives. The truth is, being seen and not honored is a different kind of wound, because you start to ask yourself, if he saw me, why didn't he love me right? You start blaming yourself for someone else's lack. But hear me when I say this. His failure to honor you is not your failure to be worthy. Let that truth cut deep. You don't need to fix yourself for someone who broke you and blamed you for bleeding. And listen, you can't change someone who benefits from your brokenness. He liked you confused. He liked you doubting. He liked you questioning if you were asking for too much. Because as long as you were unsure of your value, you'd keep accepting his excuses. But the moment you wake up and say, wait a minute, I'm the prize, everything shifts. That's the moment he'll start to chase what he once neglected. But don't confuse his regret with his growth. He might want you back, but that doesn't mean he's ready to honor you. Some people only value you when they realize someone else might. Let him miss you. Let him feel the absence of your energy. Let him come face to face with the weight of what he lost. Because the woman he used to handle casually, she doesn't live here anymore. If he controls your mind, he doesn't have to touch your body. Let that marinate, because not all chains are made of metal and not all prisons have walls. Some of the deepest wounds are invisible, wrapped in words that sounded like love but were dipped in manipulation. He didn't have to lay a hand on you to break you. He just had to whisper enough lies until you started believing them as truth. That's how control works. It creeps in quietly. It starts with small things. The way he questioned your outfit makes you feel like your friends aren't really for you, tells you you're being dramatic when you express your needs. It's subtle, strategic. He starts planting doubt like seeds, and before you know it, you're second guessing everything: your voice, your power, your instincts, your identity. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't slam a door, but every time he made you feel like you were too emotional, too needy, too difficult, he was shrinking your world. He knew exactly what he was doing, because when a man learns how to get into your head, he doesn't need to raise a hand. He makes you do the damage yourself. You start silencing your truth. You start apologizing for your boundaries. You start thinking his approval is your oxygen. That's not love. That's mental captivity. And the most dangerous part, you start defending him. You tell your friends, he's not that bad. You tell yourself, maybe it's me. You walk on eggshells in your own relationship and call it peace. But deep down, you're anxious, exhausted, lost. You can't even tell what's real anymore, because he's mastered the art of emotional warfare. He twists your words. One day you say how you feel, the next day he makes you feel crazy for even saying it. He doesn't deny what he did. He denies how it made you feel. That's psychological control. That's gaslighting. And sis, that's a war you were never meant to fight alone. See, some men are addicted to control, not connection. They don't want a partner, they want a puppet, someone they can mold, someone they can manipulate, someone they can keep close enough to benefit from, but never close enough to feel convicted by. So he praises you just enough to keep you there, but criticizes you just enough to keep you insecure. That's why you stayed. That's why you kept hoping, because he was just good enough not to be obvious. He'd say, I love you right after tearing you down. He'd buy flowers after ignoring your tears. He'd call you his world while simultaneously making you feel like a burden. And you started changing. You stopped wearing certain clothes because he didn't like the attention. You cut off friends because he said they were jealous. You stopped talking about your dreams because he made you feel like they were unrealistic. Slowly you disappeared under the weight of his words. But let me tell you something, when a man can control your mind, he can control your life. And the scariest part is he doesn't need to force it. He just has to make you doubt yourself enough that you hand over the keys to your freedom willingly. That's not love, that's manipulation wrapped in romance. There's a reason you feel tired all the time. There's a reason you feel like you're never doing enough, never being enough. He created a version of love where you're constantly performing, constantly seeking approval, constantly trying not to mess up. You were in a relationship, yes, but also in a battle for your sanity. Let me bring it into real life. You know those mornings where you wake up and feel a pit in your stomach before even checking your phone? Because you don't know what mood he'll be in today. Because yesterday he was cold, and the day before he was silent. You start tiptoeing around his emotions, treating his moods like a weather forecast you have to prepare for. That's mental control. Or when you get good news, a job offer, a new opportunity, a compliment from someone else, and instead of being happy, you hesitate because you don't know if he'll be supportive or make you feel guilty. That's control too. You stop celebrating yourself because he taught you that your joy is a threat to his power. That's how you know it's toxic, when your wins feel like losses in his presence. Some men don't need to isolate you physically, they just isolate your confidence. If he can convince you that no one else would love you like he does, then he doesn't have to chase you. He's already convinced you to stay stuck. He's convinced you that broken love is better than no love, that a half-hearted man is better than an empty bed. But let me tell you this, freedom begins in the mind. The moment you start questioning the narrative he wrote about you, the moment you say, this isn't love, this is fear, that's when you start breaking free, because love doesn't control, it liberates. Love doesn't confuse, it clarifies. And any man who tries to rule your mind is afraid of the moment you realize the truth. You were never the problem. You were just too powerful for the version of love he was capable of giving. God will never send a man to destroy you. You need to hear that deep in your soul, because some of you are sitting in rooms you were never meant to enter, holding on to relationships you were never meant to carry, and calling it God's will because you're afraid to let go of what's familiar. But listen to me, just because you met him doesn't mean he was sent by God. The enemy knows how to dress him up too. God doesn't send confusion, God doesn't send manipulation, God doesn't send fear. So if the man in your life is leaving you anxious, insecure, broken, and doubting your own voice, then baby girl, you can be sure that man did not come from heaven's delivery room. Some of y'all are trying to force a divine label on a devilish situation. You're laying in bed at night crying, begging God to fix something he never built. You're praying for restoration when God is trying to give you revelation. You're asking him to bless a relationship that's been cursing your peace since day one. That's not faith. That's desperation disguised as devotion. God will never send someone to strip you of your identity, silence your voice, or make you feel like you have to compete with your own reflection just to be chosen. He will never send someone who abuses you with their silence, who twists your words until you don't trust your own mind, who gives you just enough attention to stay but never enough to feel safe. That's not divine, that's destruction. And it's wild because the whole time you thought the pain meant it was working. You thought the struggle meant it was real. You told yourself, if I just hold on a little longer, he'll change. But baby, the longer you hold on to someone who's destroying you, the longer it takes for God to show you who he really meant for you to be with. Not every storm is from God. Some are the result of us ignoring the signs and calling it love. Let me bring it into real life. You know those days when your entire mood shifts because of one text or the lack of one, when you're afraid to bring up your feelings because he might ghost you, get mad, or flip the script like you're the problem? You're not walking in love. You're walking on eggshells. And God did not call his daughters to be stepping stones in a man's emotional dysfunction. You are not a rehab center for broken men. You are not a holding tank until he finds someone better. You are not his mama, his therapist, or his emotional punching bag. You are a woman of God. You are a carrier of purpose. You are worthy of a love that covers you, not a relationship that crucifies you. And yet some of you are still praying, Lord, help him see me. But what if I told you God is trying to help you see him for who he really is, for what he's really doing? Because sometimes we are so blinded by potential that we ignore the patterns. You fell in love with who he could become, but God keeps showing you who he really is. God doesn't send a man who leads you away from him. If your prayer life is dry because you're too stressed from that relationship, if your confidence is gone because he tears you down with every word, if you're more anxious than at peace, trust me when I say that's not your God-sent man. A man from God will not be perfect, but he will be protective of your heart. He'll challenge you to grow, not force you to shrink. He won't gaslight you into thinking your feelings are flaws. He'll make room for your emotions, your dreams, your voice. because he knows that your soul matters, not just your body. And yes, I get it. Sometimes the loneliness makes you settle. Sometimes the memory of how he held you that one night makes you forget how he hurt you every other day. But don't confuse chemistry with confirmation. The enemy can create sparks too, especially when you're cold and craving connection. But God sends peace. God sends alignment. God sends clarity. He doesn't send a man who makes you question your worth. He doesn't send a man who disappears when life gets hard. He doesn't send a man who loves the idea of you but can't handle the reality of you. Stop confusing seasonal men with eternal promises. Sometimes the very thing you're calling a blessing is the same thing God is trying to remove, but because you prayed for love and he showed up at the right time with the right smile, with the right words, you assumed it had to be God, but let me tell you, the devil knows timing too. And he'll send a distraction dressed as your desire just to keep you from destiny. God will never send a man who breaks what he created in you. You are his masterpiece, his daughter, his vessel. The moment you start deteriorating in someone's presence is the moment you need to ask yourself, is this love or is this a lesson? Because sometimes the biggest blessing is the one that walks away, or the one you finally get the strength to leave. And don't you dare think that God needs you to suffer in order to be faithful. That's not what love looks like. That's not what God's love reflects. You were never meant to survive love. You were meant to thrive in it. Love is not supposed to tear you down just so you can call it testimony. It's supposed to lift you up so you can testify to how God showed up in someone who showed you him. He might have used you, but God will use you. You thought you were being broken. You thought it was the end. You thought giving him your heart, your time, your loyalty, and your body only for him to walk away meant you lost. But what if I told you that everything he used, everything he took, every tear he made you cry is about to become the very foundation God builds your power on? Let that sink in. He used you, but God will use it. See, the enemy thought if he could get you to feel worthless, you'd stay silent. He thought if he could twist your love story into heartbreak, you'd never love again. He thought if he could make you believe that this pain defined you, you'd never rise. But what the enemy underestimated was the God inside of you. A God who doesn't waste pain. A God who turns betrayal into fuel. A God who builds warriors out of women who were once weeping on bathroom floors at 2 a.m. He might have used you for comfort, for convenience, for control. He might have used your kindness as a weakness. He might have used your loyalty as leverage. He took, and when you had nothing left to give, he walked away like you were disposable, like your love was replaceable. But baby, let me tell you something loud and clear. You were never the fool. You were the foundation. Because even in your pain, you were sowing seeds. Even in your heartbreak, heaven was watching. Every night you cried yourself to sleep but still got up the next morning. That was strength. That was faith. That was purpose being shaped in silence. God saw it all. He saw the text messages you wrote but never sent. He saw the dinners you cooked with a smile while your heart was breaking. He saw the way you shrank yourself to make him feel big. He saw the nights you prayed for him while he was entertaining somebody else. You thought no one noticed, but God did, and he said, watch what I do with this. Watch how I take the ashes and turn them into oil. Watch how I take her lowest point and raise her into her calling. Watch how I use what broke her to bless her. See, some people were sent into your life not to stay, but to spark something. And yeah, it hurt. Yeah, it was unfair. But that pain woke something up in you. That heartbreak forced you to see yourself again, to reintroduce yourself to your worth, to dig deep, to ask hard questions, to finally say no more, because sometimes the blessing is not in what he gave you, but in what he took. He took the blindfold off. He took the illusion. He took the dream you were clinging to so you could finally grab hold of the truth that you are enough. that you are whole, that you do not need to earn love by sacrificing yourself on the altar of someone else's immaturity. You're not broken, you're becoming. You're not discarded, you're being repositioned. You're not used up, you're being set apart. And I know it hurts. I know it feels like the best parts of you were wasted on someone who didn't deserve even a fraction. But what you gave was never in vain. God is going to use every piece of that pain. He's going to use your story to set another woman free. He's going to use your healing journey as a map for someone else's breakthrough. You think you're just surviving, but heaven is watching a masterpiece being made in the mess. You're going to speak and women will feel seen. You're going to walk and others will find their steps. You're going to love again, but next time it'll be with eyes wide open, heart full, and standards high. Don't be ashamed of how deep you loved. That love was real, that love was pure, that love came from the most sacred part of you. The fact that he couldn't handle it doesn't mean it was wrong. It means he wasn't ready for the weight of a woman built by God. And let's be real, some of you are still blaming yourself, saying things like, how did I let this happen? Why didn't I see it sooner? But that guilt, that shame, it's not yours to carry. You showed up with your whole heart. You gave someone the benefit of the doubt. You believed in the good. That's not weakness. That's honor. That's character. And God sees that and he says, I can work with that. So yeah, he might have used you, but God will use it to build a voice inside you that can no longer be silenced. He'll use it to birth a new level of confidence, a new level of boundaries, a new level of purpose that could only come from walking through that fire. You thought it was destruction. God says it was preparation. You thought it was rejection. God says it was redirection. You thought you lost. God says, wait and see what I birth through this, because pain has a way of purifying your vision. You see differently now. You move differently now. You've learned how to spot the red flags in the first sentence, how to read energy without hearing words, how to walk away at the first sign of disrespect. That's not trauma. That's wisdom. You earned that through the fire, through the lies, through the nights you didn't think you'd make it. And now you're walking with power, quiet power, the kind that doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't prove, the kind that knows if he used me, then God must be about to use this. You are the prize, sis. Read that again. Let it echo, let it hit the places inside you where you've been questioning your value, begging for love, chasing validation, and dimming your light to fit into someone else's shadow. You are not an option. You are not a backup plan. You are not someone's maybe. You are the prize, the whole blessing, the answer to a prayer they didn't even know how to speak out loud. The problem is, somewhere along the way, you forgot. You forgot when he started treating you like you were hard to love. You forgot when you kept lowering your standards just to keep him around. You forgot when you gave and gave and gave, and the only thing you got back was silence, excuses, and gaslighting. You forgot because this world has trained women, especially strong, loving, emotionally intelligent women, to believe that we have to earn love, that we have to audition for commitment, that we have to prove we're worthy of the bare minimum. And let me tell you something that will shift your whole mindset. A prize doesn't chase. A prize doesn't beg. A prize doesn't compete. A prize knows she is the win. You were not created to settle. You were not created to break yourself in pieces so someone else can feel whole. You were not created to beg a man to see what God already made evident in you. You walk into the room carrying grace, power, love, resilience, and wisdom. And if a man can't recognize that, it's not your job to shrink so he can. It's his job to level up or let you go. Let's talk about real life. Let's talk about those moments where you stayed in relationships way past the expiration date because he gave you just enough attention to keep you, but never enough consistency to claim you. Let's talk about how you cooked for him, prayed for him, encouraged him, and in return, he gave you confusion and excuses. You were acting like a wife to a man who couldn't even spell commitment. But sis, here's what I need you to understand. You can't make someone value you by giving them more of what they already take for granted. You were never hard to love. He was just unequipped to love someone of your caliber. Because when you're a prize, not every hand is qualified to hold you. Not every man is built to love a woman who knows who she is. Some will try to control you because they can't keep up with your shine. Others will try to belittle you because they're intimidated by your strength. And some, they'll walk away altogether, not because you weren't enough, but because your presence exposed how much healing they refuse to do. Stop taking that personally. It's not rejection, it's redirection. It's God saying you're too valuable to be wasted here. You weren't placed on this earth to tolerate crumbs when you were made to feast at tables built by real love, real honor, real effort. The moment you realize you're the prize is the moment everything shifts. You stop over-explaining your worth to people who refuse to listen. You stop accepting potential over patterns. You stop confusing mixed signals with destiny. You stop thinking love should feel like anxiety, confusion, and chasing clarity. You want to know what being the prize looks like? It looks like peace when you're alone, because you know being single isn't a punishment. It looks like saying no without guilt, yes without fear, and goodbye without begging. It looks like understanding that your presence is a privilege, not a guarantee. It looks like no longer accepting apologies without change, effort without consistency, or chemistry without commitment. It looks like being so in love with yourself that you don't even entertain anything that threatens your peace. You are the prize, sis. And that's not arrogance. That's alignment. That's walking in the truth of who you are without apology. That's realizing that a man who truly sees you will never make you question if you're enough. He'll know, he'll honor, he'll pursue. And until that man comes, you wait with joy, not desperation. Because when you know you're the prize, you don't rush divine timing. You don't let loneliness make decisions. You don't allow almost love to distract you from true love. And sis, hear me on this. Being the prize doesn't mean you don't have flaws. It means you have value even in your healing. It means you are whole even while growing. It means you don't have to perform perfection to be chosen. You are worthy now. You are powerful now. You are beautiful now. Any man who fails to see that isn't your loss. He just wasn't qualified for the one. You are not meant to convince someone to love you. You're meant to be loved freely, deeply, consistently, without question. You are the answered prayer. You are the upgrade. You are the win. And the moment you embrace that, you stop settling, you start soaring, and the world has no choice but to rise up and meet the woman who finally remembered who she is. So now, sis, let me say this loud enough for every woman in the back who forgot her worth, lost her voice, or left her crown on the floor of a relationship that didn't deserve her presence. You are rising. Not tomorrow, not when you get closure, not when he apologizes, right now. Because healing isn't something you wait for, it's something you decide. You decide this pain will not define me. This heartbreak will not be the end of me. This was a chapter, not the conclusion. You may have been used, lied to, manipulated, underestimated, even walked out on, but let me remind you of a truth stronger than any betrayal. What tried to break you just built a woman that no storm can shake. Let that sink in. You didn't lose, you learned. You didn't fall, you were planted. And baby, what gets planted in the dark always blooms in the light. The darkness wasn't your enemy, it was your growth season. You see, broken women don't stay broken, not the ones who are chosen, not the ones called by God, not the ones who are tired of surviving and finally ready to thrive. Because it's always the woman who got hurt the worst who ends up walking in the most power. It's always the one who was overlooked who ends up becoming the one everyone watches in awe. And that woman is you. So to every woman watching, listening, standing at the edge of giving up, don't quit. Don't break your own heart trying to hold on to someone who doesn't even see the woman you're becoming. You are not someone's second chance. You are someone's answered prayer. And when the right one comes, he won't just see you, he'll honor you. But first you have to honor yourself. Stop dimming your light to fit into rooms you've outgrown. Stop watering dead plants and calling it loyalty. Stop confusing potential with purpose. God never told you to shrink for someone who was too afraid to rise with you. That was never the assignment. The assignment was this: become so whole that love becomes a choice, not a necessity. Become so rooted in your worth that nobody's absence shakes your value. Become so powerful in your peace that anyone who disturbs it automatically disqualifies themselves. And yes, it hurts. Growth hurts. Healing hurts. Letting go hurts. But you know what hurts more? Staying in places where you're forgotten. Staying in cycles where you're always fixing what you didn't break. Staying in love with someone who only loves the version of you that benefits them. That is the real pain. So let this be your turning point. Let this be the moment you rise from the ashes of disappointment and say, enough. I am not broken. I am becoming. I am not ruined. I am being rebuilt. I am not the one who lost. I am the one who learned. Because sis, God doesn't end things to hurt you. He ends things to free you. And sometimes rejection is just redirection to something bigger, better, blessed. Remember what the greats have said. Your value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to see your worth. You don't find your worth in a man, you find it in yourself, and the right man will reflect it back to you. Don't be afraid to start over. This time you're not starting from scratch. You're starting from wisdom. Let the pain make you powerful. Let the fire refine you. Let the past be the lesson, not the prison. And don't ever again water yourself down so someone else can swallow you easier. You're not here to be easy. You're here to be exceptional. You are the storm they didn't see coming. You are the standard now. You are the woman they write poems about, the woman they remember when it's too late, and you're just getting started. Because the truth is, you don't need him to complete you. You needed him to wake you up.